Hello, my name is Kip Weller. I'm an FAE with JF Kilfoyle, FAE Field Application Engineer. Another DIY, do-it-yourself video at the request of my friend and coworker Neil. He asked me or suggested that we do a more in-depth or specific video on splicing of wires. When somebody talks about splicing wires, you're basically talking about connecting them electrically, and you want to connect them mechanically as well. To do that, let's see if I've got a couple examples here. To do that, hopefully this will show, the first thing we need to do is remove the insulation from the wire to get to the copper, to get to the conductor. And that could be done with something like a simple pair of stripping pliers. I recently got a little better set of pliers that's mechanical. I don't know if this will be able to show, but with this you can just stick the wire into the tool and pull it, and it pops off the insulation. So that makes it a little bit easier. Then once you've got the insulation removed, you got a choice. The common choices anyway. One is to solder the wire, and I'm not going to solder and show off my poor soldering skills, but typically you take the wires and twist them together, and I love this little device. I shared this information with my friends Lisa and Nate. Little holding, my dad always had one of these alligator clip fixtures, so you can hold something and then you can do your work on it without them moving or being disturbed. And this one's got a nice little light on it. But if you wanted to set up for soldering, you could do this and then introduce solder and heat, either a torch or a soldering iron, and solder this joint. The other method that I think is a little easier is crimping. You take a crimp barrel like this one. I've already crimped it onto the one wire. It's basically a tubular piece of metal, and you strip your wires and you insert them in both sides, and then you take your crimping tool of choice. I've got a couple of them, but this one's pretty simple. And you're basically crushing that barrel onto the wire so that you make a good solid electrical connection and mechanical connection. But you've got this exposed conductor area here that if you were to put this in an appliance or in an automobile, anytime this thing would hit or touch anything metal, you could have a short to ground, you could cause a fire. So then we need to insulate it. The next step is to use a piece of heat shrink tubing. If it's something indoors, you probably don't need to seal it, like if it's an appliance, a vacuum cleaner, or something you've repaired. Typically when you splice wires, you're either adding something to an electrical system, like a light to your boat trailer or something, or maybe you've damaged a wire and you need to repair it. So now you've got the wire either added or repaired, and then we can add a piece of heat shrink tubing to it and recover that so the whole system is insulated. If it's outdoors, you can use a piece of adhesive line tubing like Sumitomo for automotive materials, an SA3 type material, or you can use a W3B2, which is another high ratio heat shrinkable material that's got a nice liner of adhesive to it. So you can put that on there, shrink it, and then the adhesive will flow, and I'll shrink one of these. The other thing you can do if you don't have adhesive line tubing is you can use regular heat shrink tubing. Then you can heat up you can use a heat gun or even a torch, and you can heat a stick of hot melt glue. And once that's hot and soft, you can take that and wipe that on. I'm dripping it on my nice floor here. But you can wipe it on your electrical connection here to seal it. You can see that's all covered with adhesive. I'm making a mess, but nothing new about that for me. Once that's cool, then you can add your heat shrink tubing to it. It's probably still going to be a little too tacky. You can add your heat shrink tubing. We'll finish this as soon as this cools. Okay, I'm back. Now that this adhesive is cooled so it's not wet and sticky, and I changed to a little larger piece of heat shrink because I've got so much adhesive on here, you can slide your regular non-adhesive heat shrink onto that spliced area, right over that adhesive, and then with a heat gun or even a hair dryer, or you could even use if you're careful, you can use open flame, but it's easy to be too hot and to burn this material. So you got to be cautious about overheating. But with a normal heat gun, with a reflector, we can recover this material It'll soften that adhesive and get that adhesive to flow. And now we've got a spliced conductor, spliced wire, electrically connected with a crimp, sealed with adhesive, hot melt adhesive, and insulated with, in this case, Sumitomo's polyolefin tubing B2 in probably 3/16 size or maybe 1/4 inch size. But you can see the adhesive, maybe you can see, the adhesive is actually being squeezed out of the ends, showing that it's a good seal. So we've got a good electrical connection, we've got a good mechanical connection, and we've got a good weatherproof connection. Let's say this was outdoors on a snowblower, boat trailer, motorcycle, etc. If it's indoors, you don't need the adhesive. You can just use regular heat shrink tubing, which is actually a little quicker because we don't have the adhesive to worry about. And this is just B2 material, Sumitomo's B2. It's a 2-to-1 polyolefin. Shrinks nice and quickly and evenly. So let's say we had a splice here. This would be our indoor splice insulation cover, and this would be one for outdoors. Hopefully that's helpful. Neil, hopefully it meets your approval. Wishing you all a good day. Again, you can find me, reach me from our website at jfkilfoil.com for anything related to heat shrink tubing applications you may have an interest in or want to talk about. Have a great day.